Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving the Kooverjee family the opportunity of telling our story and history of Babu's footwear that started in 1921. I made brief notes divided into years how Babu's footwear started in Wynberg. It started off from 1919 when my grandfather and his brother left India for South Africa for, as I would say, greener pastures. And they left India with boat, and the idea was to land in Port Elizabeth, which was called Algoa Bay in the early 1900s. They could not speak English, couldn't write, they never knew English. When the boat landed in Maputo, which was called Dalgoa Bay, they thought they arrived in Port Elizabeth, Algoa Bay. So they got off, disembarked in Dalgoa Bay. Once the boat left, they realized they definitely not in Port Elizabeth, but in Maputo, Dalgoa Bay. From that journey, if I have to use the word trekked, from Maputo, they landed up in a place called the R. That was a railway junction. They worked for many, many months, accumulating money, and from the R, they moved to Uitenhage in the Eastern Cape. My grandfather and his brother set up shop in Uitenhage, and my grandfather suffered from asthma, and Uitenhage definitely was not the perfect area to stay in, and he decided to move south to Cape Town. And he arrived in Cape Town in 1921. It's interesting that the bicycle that we've got on display at the back, he took the bicycle from Cape Town on a tram, never knew where he was going, landed up in Wynberg, which was spelled in that time Wijnburg, Dutch. When he got off in Wynberg, he came down Park Road, Wynberg, and he saw an empty shop at number 33 Park Road, Wynberg, with a sign "To Let." He had no idea what "To Let" means. Next to 33 was 31 Park Road, and there was an elderly lady, it was a Muslim lady that stayed at number 31, and inquired about the empty shop. And she directed him to the shop next to Babu's, President Babu's, which was owned by a Chinese family. And the Chinese family owned President Babu's footwear. My grandfather inquired and did the deal, and in 1st of August 1921, opened up in Kooverjee, boot and shoemaker. His name was Nagar, our son was Kooverjee. And that's where in Kooverjee, boot and shoemaker started in 1921. At a very early age, my grandfather started with that bicycle. He would cycle up to Bergfleet, collect shoes, bags, come back to Park Road, repair, back on the bicycle, deliver. So I would many times joke with customers, that was like his Toyota Hilux Bucky. He had a massive basket in front, fetching and dropping shoes 7 days a week. And that's how the Babu's footwear started. Unfortunately, in 1941, he passed away, and my dad, being still a very young boy at that stage, 13 years of age, had to take over the family reins with his 6 sisters. My grandmother ran the business between 1941, and she passed away in 1943 as well. So my dad and his 6 sisters were orphaned in 1943, and at the age, as I said, at the age of 15, they had to survive. Between 1921 and 1941, my grandfather, who rented the place in Park Road, Wynberg, accumulated and bought the building from the Chinese family who went back to China. And between the 20 years that he traded in Wynberg, he accumulated property in York Road, Flora Road, Sussex Road, in excess of 10 properties in that 20 years from shoe repairs. He worked exceptionally hard, and at that time it was survival. In 1949, a gentleman by the name of Peter Malan joined my late dad, and my dad taught him the art of shoe repairs. Young Peter Malan was 17 until he retired in 1989 after about 40 years, and he passed away, unfortunately, this year as well. In that photographs at the back, I have to mention a gentleman by the name of Mr. Kippie Raycliffe, who was a builder and stayed in Park Road, Wynberg. And he renovated and built our present-day shop and house. Mr. Raycliffe stayed across the way from Dr. Cohen in Park Road, Wynberg. He owned horses. He owned a wash house that's washed clothes in Bats Road, Wynberg. And Mr. Raycliffe was the builder that put up our present-day building. Between 1954 and 1960, my late dad decided to start selling new shoes. It was very difficult in the lower part of Wynberg to set up shop. Most of the stores above the main road, names like McDonald's, Duncan Taylor, Louis Shoes, Rifkin & Miller, Naresh, Zabo's, catered mostly for the European clientele. And my dad decided he needed to have a niche market and decided to stock specific type of shoes together with watches and shirts and girls' dresses, and it was a general store where he started. And in that same period, he started a credit business where people would purchase goods, and on a Friday night and a Saturday afternoon, my late father, Peter Malan's family, my brothers took over that train at a later stage. They would drive around Wynberg collecting from customers that had purchased shoes. And just the other day, I found a book, and we used to call it a blue book. And this particular book, this was the book where basically, if you purchase goods, it will be all recorded. And on a Friday night, we would go around Wynberg collecting money on account. And the interesting part at the back of the book, it was how you could purchase and how would you pay for the shoes. And in that era, if you purchase shoes between 10 and 20 rand, then you would pay 1 rand a week. If you bought shoes between 31 and 40 rand, you pay 2 rand a week. And our top customers were the ones who purchased between 40 and 60 rand, and that was 3 rand a week. 40 to 60 rand was a lot of money for purchasing shoes in that era, and 3 rand was also a lot of money as well. So with the receipt book, you would collect 1 rand, 2 rand, 3 rand, and that's basically to grow the business. From the credit business, 1960 Group Areas Act. My mom, who's sitting in the back, will vouch for this. Every Monday morning, we would have Afrikaner officials every Monday morning coming to the store, finding out, when are you moving? Moving to where? I don't know. My father owned the building, it was his business. But we were basically like Indian people trading in a so-called colored area, so we were in the wrong area. My mother basically said, no ways. I wouldn't use the term that she told them, but every Monday was the same story, and I think they got tired, and I think that was the end of that one. In 1968, my dad decided to venture out and invest in good quality imported shoes, again below the railway line, for our customers that stayed predominantly in Grassy Park, Parkwood, Lansdowne, Gleamore, Belgravia, and again on the credit system. And the shoes that we introduced that time were like Elefante shoes for kiddies, which we still stock, Clark shoes, Crocker & Jones, a line we imported from the UK called Elmdale, which the Queen wore till the day she passed away. And these are all very, very good quality shoes. And on the same token, we provided the repair service for that as well. And just a small note that I found in one of the diaries recently, that when we did apply, my late dad applied for the clerk's agency, it was rejected. And the reason is many of the stores above the railway line felt that the store in Park Road, Wynberg definitely did not suit the image of stocking a brand called Clark Shoes. Park Road, Wynberg, it's just the image of Clark brand, it won't gel. But if Dad had a cousin in Salisbury, Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, who was the biggest purchaser of Clark Shoes, importer of Clark Shoes to Rhodesia. My dad discussed it with him, and he said, leave it to me, no problem. He placed the order from Rhodesia to the UK, and included the order for Park Road, Wynberg. And when Clarks realized, the extra pairage that was ordered, they cancelled the order. And his reply was, fine, cancel my entire Rhodesia order, I no longer require your shoes. Immediately they couldn't lose that business, and that was the start of my dad got the Clark's agency in Wynberg. Stores above Main Road Wynberg were not happy, but in a matter of 5-6 years, we were the biggest stockers and importers of Clark shoes in Cape Town. It was determination. In 1980, my dad started investing in machinery and going into the orthopedic modifications and shoe repairs, a niche market again. And there were doctors by the name of Doctors Breitenbach, Rail Jaffe, Driver Jarwood, who are all orthopedic surgeons, who came to Park Road, showed my dad what they needed, and with the help of Peter Milan, mastered all the modifications. And I would say that the rest was history. And doctors in our area who supported us as well were like Doctors Megan, Grimwood, Cohen, Heger, and they would send their patients as well to our store for proper fitting shoes, etc. In 1980, our business has expanded. My brother who's sitting over here, Royd, joined in 1980. My eldest brother, Rashmi, in 81. I joined in when my father passed away in 87. And the fourth generation was my nephew, Kieran, who's sitting at the back, who started in 2001. And that's how we had stores in Pinelands, Gardens, Sea Point, Kenilworth, etc. My mom joined in the mid-50s. Up till COVID 2019, she's been 63 years in the business. She's sitting in the back. She comes in once in a while just to check up to see if everything is okay, but she's still going. Last year, we celebrated our 100th centenary, 100th year in business. This year's our 101st year. That's the history of Babu's Footwear in Park Road, Wynberg. Some of the photographs at the back, you will be able to pick up from the 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's been quite an interesting journey. And lastly, we definitely cannot forget, our grandparents. They worked exceptionally hard to make a living and to improve, for us to live a better life. And they provided a foundation for us. So we definitely cannot forget that. That's the history in a nutshell. There's lots of other history, but this is in a nutshell of what Babu's Footwear is all about. Thank you for giving me and Babu's Footwear the opportunity of sharing the history with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Naresh, so much. The important thing is the 101 years of history, Dad, all of this history is now archived. So it will be around for many, many more years, from Delagoa Bay to Algoa Bay. The mistake we are thankful for. Thank you so much. And we're going to hand over a little plaque to you. And yeah, there we go.